How to go about getting a raise at work. Hello, beautiful people. Have you ever asked for a raise and felt like you completely bungled it? I know I have. I've also watched many people do the same thing, and I've been on the other side of the table with many people doing the same thing. But what if this could actually be a much easier conversation than we anticipate it might be? Many people wake up some morning and decide they want to have a raise. And they ask the first person they meet who they think can give them a raise, who's usually their boss. Now, if you're one of those people, I recommend you do not do that. There is a much better way. If you think asking for a raise is just about money, you're mistaken. It is really about value. And once you understand that, you make it much easier for yourself to be able to ask for a raise. Remember that money is just the value exchange that your company makes with you. Let's talk about that. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to position yourself for a raise in a way that reduces the awkwardness, doesn't put your boss on the spot, makes it feel much more comfortable for you. You'll end up having just straightforward conversations that allow you to be able to build a level of trust and friendship and camaraderie with your boss, rather than this being an awkward and uncomfortable conversation. Let me take you through a 4-step process. It's pretty simple. Step number 1 is truly, honestly asking yourself if you're eligible. If you were your boss, would you give yourself a raise? One of the ways to get yourself ready for this is to do the promotion readiness assessment. There's a link down in the comments. It's www.getpromotedassessment.com. And once you do that, it's kind of nudging you towards answering that question for yourself. Am I ready? When you're doing this assessment, what you're doing is you're asking yourself, am I doing my best work? Am I adding value in the best way I possibly can? You're asking yourself how you stack up against your peers, and that's something that you do need to know. What does your performance look like? You've been tracking your performance over a couple of cycles now, whether you do reviews or informal reviews, formal or informal, whether you're doing them on a quarterly, a 6-month or an annual cycle, more than likely an annual cycle. But ideally what's happening is you're also having recurring conversations with your boss and your internal customers as to how your performance is stacking up. The other question to ask yourself is, do you understand how you're adding value to your company? If you're a task taker and all you're doing is working through your task lists, then chances are you don't have an understanding of how you're adding value to your company. Make sure that you're aligning yourself with the metrics and the performance metrics, or the objectives and key results, depending on what system your company uses, and make sure that you understand how you're adding value. So if I met you and I said, lovely to meet you, how are you adding value to your company? You could actually answer that question for me. Also make sure that you know where you stand with your boss. And by that I mean that you are having recurring conversations with your boss, that it's relatively easy for you to talk to your boss about important stuff, not just about the weather and not just about how great your weekend was, so that you can talk to your boss about important stuff. And as you do that, you're building a level of trust with them over time. If you can't answer that question, where do I stand with your boss? Take time out on the promotion readiness assessment and go out there and ask your boss how they think you're doing. Those are difficult conversations to have, but they're super worth having, and they're super worth having on an ongoing basis. Not to where you're nagging your boss until they actually tell you that you're doing great, but just casually so that you know how it is that you're doing and what your boss thinks about what you've done. And it's a really good time to do it when you're delivering on something. I've completed this work. I want to check in with you and make sure it was what you were looking for. Really simple, really easy way to close a loop and make sure you're asking whether or not your boss was satisfied with what it was that you did. By breaking these conversations down into small, regular conversations, you're making it much easier for yourself to have. So get into the habit of doing that. Step 2 is make sure that you've had the right conversations in preparation for this. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen people make is asking for a raise without having done any of the preparation, as if a raise is something that magically shows up out of the blue. It absolutely is not. A raise is something that shows up based on budgets, based on annual planning cycles, and based on performance reviews. So all of those things have to come together for someone to be able to get a raise. And a raise comes out of your boss's budget or your department's budget. So it's also important to know who actually holds and runs and manages that budget. The other thing to remember, that raises aren't personal favors. Raises are business decisions. Raises have to do with how well the company's doing, what value the company is adding to their customers. Raises have to do with how budgets are managed and what the budget cycles look like. And raises have to do with how much value you're able to add to the company and whether you're on track and have a shared understanding with your boss as to what that value is. Over a 6 to 18 month period, you should be having conversations with your boss around your performance, around their expectations, around how they're measured, around what the goals for the group, the team, the department are, and where you fit into that and what your role is on delivering on that. If you're having these conversations over an ongoing period of time, when you get to the point of asking for a raise, it's not a big scary conversation. It's just a natural progression of conversations that you've already been having. Step number 3 is make it easier on your boss to say yes. This is super important and people forget how important this is. So think about it again. Your boss is running a team of 300 people. They've got a lot on their plate. When you go into that conversation, make sure that they understand that the value that you've added, make sure you understand how that relates to how they're measured, and make sure that you're giving them what they need to be able to advocate for a promotion or a raise for you. That means that you've also done your homework to understand the accomplishments that you've made over the year, not blowing your own horn, but actually integrating those in with what your boss is trying to accomplish and making sure that they understand how you've contributed to their success. Instead of saying simply, I want a raise, I have found that it's much more effective to say, I would like to talk about a raise and potentially get one in the next 6 to 12 months. And the reason why that is again, boss has a lot on their plate. If someone comes in and it's a surprise and someone's trying to put them under pressure, their response is going to be the natural human response of, I've got too much going on, I can't handle this right now. If someone is planning with me and helping me do the work, I, as their boss, I'm much more likely to be able to listen to them, work with them, help them, and plan for this. If your boss says no when you ask for a raise, don't panic. Don't panic, breathe, and don't try not to get yourself angry or resentful about this. If you need to take a break from the conversation, do, and come back and finish it at a later date. But make sure that you are not getting upset or angry with your boss. That'll get you absolutely nowhere. Much more important and valuable conversation is to go, okay, well, I would really appreciate your help to understand how I can get a raise in the next promotion cycle. Are there steps that I should have been taking or could have taken in this one to be able to be more effective? Is there some coaching or planning that you and I could do together that would allow me to be able to be more ready so that you can say yes next time? Is there something I can do where I can actually help you advocate for me more effectively? So you're making an offer to them to work more collaboratively with them, so it's less of a surprise and less of an effort for them. The other step number 4, the thing to do in here is to recognize this is a repeatable process. You're going to be asking for raises and promotions for your entire career. So the idea is not to see this as a once-off, but to recognize this is something you want to get really good at. So if you do any kind of practice in your life, if you play a musical instrument, if you practice yoga, if you play soccer, if you hunt, if you fish, what you're doing in there is you have a practice that you're getting better and better at over time. Asking for a raise, asking for a promotion, same kind of deal. You're looking to get better at it over time. So although you might come out of the conversation saying, I didn't get a raise, what's a more valuable and important conversation for you to have with yourself is to say, did I get better at asking for a raise? Am I going to find it easier to be able to do next time? Did I do my homework? Did I do the prep? Was I in alignment with my boss? Did I build that trust? Had I prepared myself? Would I have given myself a raise or a promotion? Over time, what you will find is the conversations become a lot easier. The homework and the preparation becomes a lot easier. Your understanding and knowledge of that process will allow you to feel a lot more confident coming into those conversations. And over time, what you'll find is because you're on the other side of the conversation as a boss and you've got people reporting to you, you've got a lot more empathy towards your own boss, and the process simply becomes easier over time. One of the things that you can do right now to help yourself, do the promotion readiness assessment. That puts you in your boss's shoes to a certain extent, because I wrote it and I've been a boss for many people and I've helped them get promoted and I've helped them get raises. And so I wrote it from that perspective. Do the promotion readiness assessment, www.getpromotedassessment.com, and let us know how it goes for you. And I wish you the best of luck.